We're filming.
Okay, cool. So, I met Kevin. I'm just going to talk about Kevin. It's going to be a stream of consciousness about Kevin. Kevin was introduced to me, came into our office a few years ago, and my colleague Sean Stevens had met him. Sean was always very good at just seeing people on the street that he suspected might be previous military or prior service, and he met Kevin and gave him some information about coming into our office, and so we had Kevin come in, and I met him there, and my first impression of Kevin is I was like, wow, he's a small guy, and he had a tattoo across his forehead, and I'm kind of a people person and always interested in getting to know people, and in the context of how I work as a social worker, I'm kind of able to ask questions and really find out what makes somebody tick, and immediately I'm drawn to people with real substantial kind of combat experience, military experience. I think what motivated me, my dad was a veteran who was in World War II, and I've always appreciated military service people and the sacrifice that they made, and so I'm interested in getting somebody to talk to me, kind of tell me their narrative, their story about how they got into the service and what they experienced in the service, and Kevin was very forthcoming, and he was one of those gentlemen that every 2 or 3 minutes you almost had to take a step back and say, no, you didn't do that, or really, you saw that, or you experienced that, because it was such a fascinating existence. He had lived a dozen lifetimes in his, what was he, 27 or 28 when he passed, and I think he was around that age. I'm not sure, I could be off on that, but he had lived just an extraordinary life up into his late 20s, and when he talked about being in the service and being in Iraq and taking on ISIS, and then getting out of the service and joining the French Foreign Legion, and he had mentioned that he was in the French Foreign Legion for about a year, but he said that he thought that they were going to be deployed and get involved in various campaigns around the globe, and it became clear to him that he wasn't going to be seeing combat, so he wanted to get out of the French Foreign Legion, and then he signed up to go to Syria and fight ISIS and join with the Kurds, and I was mesmerized by his experiences there, and he never spoke of it in grandiose terms. He was very matter of fact, and by the time I finished meeting with him, I felt like I wanted to double check his story and just kind of like get online, and he said that there were some YouTube videos out there with various people that had done interviews with him in Syria, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to double check that, because you hear a lot of different things, and you want to kind of find out if somebody's speaking on the level. There was never any indication that Kevin's stories were fabricated, but they were so kind of far out and amazing that I had to double check all this stuff and make sure his paperwork and everything that he told me kind of lined up, and it all did. It all came together just exactly as he said. So given his age and his experience and how much he loved the military fight, I was absolutely compelled to make sure that he got everything that he was entitled to through the VA, and wanted to keep a fix on him throughout the period that we worked with him and make sure that everything was going, because I felt like he was one of those soldiers that I owed a debt of gratitude to, that had laid his life on the line, that I just, it's my duty to help support that person, and he was a perfect example of that kind of combat soldier that I wanted to make sure he got everything that was coming to him. There was a period when he had told me that he would go fishing down on China Point, I think, and go striper fishing, and said he had a couple of buddies that he'd like to go fishing with from time to time, and I was like, oh, you like to fish? And that's what I do with my free time. I'm just a fishing addict, really. On much of my free time, I'm at least once or twice a week, I'm running off going fishing in the Delta, and I came back and I met with Sean at the office, and I said, Sean, he loves to go fishing, and Sean said, hey, why don't you take a day off and take him fishing? And I was like, I'd love to do that. He goes, see if he's up for it. So we went fishing out of the Delta. I took my boat out and we went striper fishing. The fishing wasn't that good, if I recall correctly, and the wind was up, but we had a great time. And again, it was all in the design of strengthening a relationship with our office and making sure that he knew that there were a couple of guys out there that had his back. And that's why we did it. At the same time, though, again, his story was so compelling, and he's a lovable character. He really was. He was just a joy to chat with, and always had really interesting anecdotal experiences that he was willing to share, and I just admired the hell out of it. He was dating a girl at the time that was kind of a tumultuous relationship that I remember, that would go hot and cold with each and every day, and so I was hoping that was going to pan out in a positive manner, and then he had a really close contact in Tucson that kept on inviting him out there. And this gentleman in Tucson had a family, had a child, had a wife, so there was some stability there. And he goes, I think I'm going to go to Tucson and kind of establish myself there. And I never want to get in the way of somebody's future plans. The fact that somebody has future plans is a real a good diagnostic piece that they're looking forward to something. They're looking for continued growth, prosperity, happiness, whatever. And so the notion of him going to Tucson was a good thing. I was sad that our office was potentially going to lose his presence. But I looked at this as a positive, and I felt like if he got lined up with the right clinicians in Tucson and his friends there, and he could build a kind of a decent support system. I went to school in Tucson, so I was familiar with Tucson, and it's a lovely town. So I was thinking, okay, this could work out fine for Kevin. And Sean would check in with me every month or so,